we are not punished for our sins, but by our sins. I, myself, am heaven and hell. Quote Omar Khayyam. Hello, my name is Andre, and today we'll be talking about sin and guilt and punishment. And we will make a subtle but still very powerful recontextualization, which has the ability to lift people out of sin, guilt, and self-punishment. But first we will have a little bit of background. Because there is a difference between religion and spirituality. Both exist on a spectrum of consciousness. So let us take religion first. Number 1, religion. The word religion comes from the Latin word religare, which means to bind or reconnect. And funnily enough, that is almost the same place where the Indian word yoga comes from. Religion exists on a spectrum of consciousness from the deepest guilt and goes all the way up to unconditional love and compassion with all sentient beings living on the earth. The endpoint for religion is sainthood, which calibrates at 555 and more generally goes from 540 to 560. And there are plenty of examples of saintly people that have lived throughout history. I'll just name a few of them. For instance, there is Saint Benedict, Saint Augustine, Saint Bernadette, Saint Denis, and my own personal favorite, Father Pio, or Padre Pio as his Italian name is. Sainthood feels good and is complete in and of itself. And there is not necessarily any drive to go any further and transcend this state of consciousness. Anyways, it can sometimes happen. Sainthood is, in other words, at the start of the lower heavens, where you have already transcended the still earthbound Garden of Eden. In the world, but not of the world, and all that. The idea of the original sin comes from the lower substratum of religion. And it is this guilt that I want to work with today in an attempt to recontextualize it later in this video. Most religions has in today's world the center of gravity and is being run as an institution from how they can do a practical difference in the world. That being said, there's still room at the uppermost spectra of the religion spectrum to the deeper essential part of sainthood, where one really goes into the holy texts and what they prescribe, not as a myth from old days, but as a subjective experienced reality. Religion is, in its essence, ritualized and hierarchical spiritual institutions which operate in the world. 2. Spirituality. The word spirituality comes from the Latin word spiritus, or spirit, which means spiritus, which means spirit. And both in English and Danish, spirit also refers to very strong alcohol, which has over 40% alcohol rate in it. And that can have something to do with the fact that alcoholism takes the spirit away from an individual human being. But I will talk much more about addiction and alcoholism in a later video. Spirituality exists on the spectrum of consciousness from the lowest part of complete apathy and giving up on the world to the highest level of transcendence in the love phase, right at the entrance to the total peace via total transcendence. The endpoint for spirituality is therefore the same as standing on the last step before the complete surrender of the appearance to the essence. Spirituality is in its essence a sadhana, or psychospiritual life journey, wherein the appearance progressively surrenders to the essence. True spirituality can therefore take a human being longer into the essence of consciousness than religion can. So this was the difference between spirituality and religion, and now we'll transfer to the next part where we'll talk about sin, guilt, self-punishment, and the lower substratas of religion. It is from the Christian religion that we get the story about humanity's original sin. In the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve were in the state of unity consciousness, but they were unconscious about it. Just in the same way that babies are unconscious about their symbiotic, unified relationship with their mother. After they were thrown out of the Garden of Eden, the first emotion that they felt was shame, and then they covered themselves. So it was shame about having been separated from the subjective experience of being one with the universe. All of a sudden, now there were two. There were the me and the universe. On top of shame, guilt was founded. Guilt that humanity had right from the start acted in such a horrible way that they lost connection to their divine birthplace. And now everyone has to take the journey through duality until they once again reach unity consciousness, which starts at the unconditional love phase. And now they can consciously step back into unity consciousness as a fully realized, awake, and connected member of the universe. It is therefore first in the unconditional love phase that we stop project this hidden shame and guilt out onto the world. From the unconditional love phase, we live from the sentence, I can never do anything wrong in the absolute sense. Everyone is innocent. When the appearance hears this, everyone is innocent, often it wants to say in response, well, if everyone is innocent, that means that I can act on all impulses that arises within me, that there are no rules and everything is anarchy. Obviously, this isn't correct. So let's repeat the sentence again, but let's add a little caveat for the appearance not to go amok. So I will repeat the sentence once again with a little caveat. Everyone is innocent, but you still have to act in a proper way. And sometimes you have to say, I'm sorry. It's true that everyone is on a journey through duality towards reconnecting with the essential life tree as referenced in the last video. It's not true that humanity has done something horribly wrong in its essence. And it's also not true that humanity was kicked out of the Garden of Eden. Humanity has, due to this quite low religious teaching, therefore through thousands of years felt in its subconscious, collective subconscious, that it has done something completely wrong, and that somehow we are all guilty just by existing as human beings. From the unconditional love phase, it becomes very apparent and clear that all people are innocent in their essence. That guilt is a product of the appearance. It's in the appearance that guilt acts as the inner tyrant. Because we are all children of the divine, and the universe is our playground. In other words, we are the ones creating problems for ourselves. There is no one else creating problems for us. I myself am both heaven and hell. This feeling of guilt is in the appearance as a collective energy parasite. And in a later video, I will talk about what I mean with when I use the word energy parasite. We haven't managed as a species yet to rid ourselves of guilt because too many people are still identified it as being true. Now I want to go deeper into guilt and self-punishment and sin by introducing a typology to the appearance by splicing up the appearance into two halves with two different focuses. First, there is the external part of the appearance, which is focused on the external world, and then there is the internal appearance, which is focused on the internal world. So let's take them one at a time, and let's start with the external appearance. The external appearance. The external appearance is a part of the appearance which is focused on the external world. The external appearance takes its inner level of consciousness or paradigm and projects it out into the world. So for instance, that could be if the appearance is in the fear paradigm, then the world becomes this very dangerous place. If it's in the anger paradigm, then the world becomes something that you have to fight against all the time, etc., etc. The external appearance wants to control the world and gain success. The external appearance is worried about how it is being seen by others and tries to control the image that it projects out and how it can be seen by others. The external appearance's biggest fear is to be humiliated and excluded from the social life. To get to the unconditional love phase, you therefore have to surrender the external appearance to the essence. And I've written a little paragraph that you can use as a kind of a mantra to help in the surrender of the external appearance. So here it goes. Who am I to think that I can run the world? Everything I will ever be able to build will sooner or later come down and into the dust because of the impermanence principle which has been embedded into the relative time. Ashes to ashes and all that. You surrender the world and everyone in it to the essence because you now realize how insignificant you really are in the infinite and essential context. And that trying to rule the world always ends up making the world a worse place than it was before. By trying to control the world, you at the same time and paradoxically go against its deeper and embedded flow, and that creates suffering. If you live your life in a surrender state to the essence, so surrender the world to the essence, then you really won't have any regrets, because all of the actions that has been flowing from you has more or less been aligned with the essential will. So the real spiritual work here is aligning the personal will to the essential will. Thy will be done, and all that. 2, the internal appearance. Where the external appearance still wanted to create stuff, things, and build things in the world, the internal appearance, which is also called the spiritualized ego, is one big energy suppressor. The internal appearance acts out of the original sin that the appearance is just fundamentally flawed and wrong. And therefore it's about suppressing all negative impulses in such a way that the appearance can be good unto itself. When the appearance falls outside of what the external appearance judges to be the right way of being in the world, then it punishes the appearance by suppressing it even more. Self-punishment thus becomes, in a very grotesque way, a way for the internal appearance to get out of sin. It does not work. The internal appearance is therefore the inner tyrant, which never wants to feel good. The internal appearance regards positive feelings as being the enemy and tries with all its might to keep us trapped in negativity and self-punishment. The internal appearance is most clearly seen in totalitarian societies where thought police has as its main task to cancel people that diverges from the norm. Life under the internal appearance is a cold, brutal, and lonely place. The endpoint for the internal appearance is also to be surrendered to the essence, and thereby you find out, or it is revealed, that sin, guilt, and punishment does not actually make any sense. It's all illusion. It does not make any sense because there's no one here to sin, guilt, and self-punish anyways. If you haven't done the previous spiritual work, which leads to the surrender of the external and internal appearance, there are two other ways that most people use to get out of sin, guilt, and self-punishment. The first way is to exchange religion with atheism. And the second way is to exchange religion with spirituality. So let's take them one at a time, and let's start with atheism. 1. Atheism. Due to sin, guilt, and self-punishment, which being the shadow side of the religion spectra in consciousness overall, it becomes more and more popular in postmodern society to exchange religion with atheism. There is one big advantage by exchanging religion for atheism, and that is that you can throw everything called sin, guilt, and self-punishment out of the window. And it's a great relief for the appearance to be able to do this. The appearance is now a free agent and can get a subjective experience of having more possibility available in life in general. But there is a price though, and the price for choosing the atheist path is that you are forced to deny the existence of essence. Without the essence, the appearance is being lifted up and crowned as being divine, and that creates a whole new set of problems. Atheism creates a two-dimensional, spiritless, materialistic society, which at the end of the day is just as cold and unsatisfying as the suppressed totalitarian religious society. Option 2, exchanging religion for spirituality. The other thing you can do to get away from sin, guilt, and self-punishment, which come from religion, is to exchange it with spirituality. By taking a spiritual but not religious position. With this position, you try to still have contact into the essential part of life, but at the same time disown everything called sin, guilt, and self-punishment, which comes with the shadow side of religion. So far, so good. Yet, there are still many ways you can go wrong through spirituality towards transcendence. The biggest place you can go wrong is that you identify with new spiritual belief systems, and thus spirituality becomes just another form of religion. In other words, you become newly religious instead of oldly religious. One example of spirituality as just another religion you find in the new religious movement called Spiritism. Spiritism has built its belief system on the idea that, and now I'll be quoting from Wikipedia, that human beings, together with all sentient beings, are really immortal spirits that temporarily had taken home in physical bodies for a certain number of incarnations that it takes to refine morally and intellectual development. End quote. Spiritism is a very sophisticated belief system, and Spiritism is the substrate of which the whole New Age wave arose from, which really came into being in the Western world at the end of the 1960s. But it is still a belief system. All belief systems require that you believe in its main assumptions about the world within the paradigm. Real spirituality does not require any belief. Instead, it requires that all human beings in their own life start examining what the world and who they are for themselves. This individual examination or search happens as a combination of reading the right text at the same time as you have an active praxis where you can verify or falsify those texts through direct experience with consciousness. A text, a spiritual text, is only as good as its inbuilt ability to point the student in the right direction, and thus it needs to calibrate high. In that way, the text can help students who really want to advance in consciousness, to gain new understanding within themselves as a revelation, unconditioned of belief systems, culture, or the prevailing zeitgeist. Most texts and most public gurus unfortunately point in the wrong direction, back into dogmatic religion, and maybe in some of the worst cases into divination of the teacher itself. And many authentic seekers are being led in the wrong direction by sociopathic individuals in the spiritual marketplace. Remember, once again, appearance is not the same as essence. And what the world does not need is more belief systems. After you have been an atheist or a spiritist for a certain amount of time, it's possible to come back to religion and take a deep dive into the love message, now without shame, guilt, sin, and punishment. From there, the road to total transcendence is the last highway through the upper strata of true spirituality. So what exactly is it that you want? The atheist way, the religious way, or the spiritual way? So let's turn to the last section of today's video and talk about spiritual work and the personality. Now we return to the recontextualization of sin based on the headline of this video, which was, "We are not punished for our sins, but by our sins." I have used the first part of this video to demonstrate why we are not punished for our sins. And that was to sum up, because we in our essence are not sinners, we are all innocent. So let's now turn to the last part of the header of this video. We are instead punished by our sins. And here we have to return to the appearance and how we are driven around in circles by our unconscious karmic patterns. After having liberated sin from religion, it becomes obvious that those sinful behaviors or patterns is a part of the appearance. It is through the personality that we sin, or to use a more modern word, create unconscious action, while we at the same time in our essence are innocent. How exactly does that work? Well, the personality is not personal. The personality is the structure of the appearance, and it consists of inner narratives and systems which make up the way we identify ourselves on the way we differentiate ourselves in the world. The personality thus takes everything personally. By taking everything personally, the personality, so to speak, attracts more energy to itself and thus secures its own survival. It happens by itself, spontaneously and autonomously, in the same way that the heart does not ask for permission to beat. The personality secures the survival of the appearance. When you become capable of stepping out of the personality, you can see that the personality itself is not personal, but consists of energy patterns which are either come down from the generations or has been spontaneously created as a response to the challenges of the world. In the next video that I will be publishing in exactly 7 days, we will examine even closer how we are being punished by our personal sins, by looking at how the appearance can make 9 different deals, so to speak, in my own metaphor here, with the devil, to keep the essence trapped in the karmic patterns of the appearance, to make sure that we never wake up. So remember, for today, lastly, we are all children of the divine, and the universe is our playground. In other words, we ourselves create our own problems. There are no one else or nothing else that creates problems for us, because we are not punished for our sins, but by our sins. I, myself, am heaven and hell. See you in a week to the second part of this series of sin, guilt, and self-punishment, and have a nice weekend.